Welcome to the Ambient iPad. In this video, I'm going to do hardware looping with the Mellotron and the Fender bass. The signal chain is the Mellotron M4000D Mini, as well as a Fender American Original 60s Precision bass. Both of those instruments have a mono output. They're going into a JHS-AB switch, so I can switch between the two instruments. The output from that pedal is going into a Boss volume pedal, which then goes into a Boss GT1000Core multi-effects, which I'll be using on both instruments. And then the output from the core goes into a Boss RE-202 Space Echo, which I'll be using just for looping. The Space Echo has a mode called long delay mode, so you can get a 6-second maximum delay out of this, and that works well for looping. So I'm going to start out with the Mellotron, just creating a soundscape. Then I'll be doing some soloing over that using the Fender Precision, and I'll use the GT1000 Core for some effects. And then while that's going, I'll start creating a loop with the bass, and then I'll go back to the Mellotron and just do some soloing and some atmospheric things to kind of get out of that. So I'm not really going to do any, any much talking and walking through each individual component like I usually do. I've kind of gone through everything here in past videos, but I've never really done the bass and the Mellotron together. For Mellotron sounds, I'm going to keep going with the Chamberlin, although if I didn't tell you that, you might just figure that they're M400 Mellotron sounds because I'm going to be using 3 violins, flute, some brass, some woodwinds, but they just have, the Chamberlin has a little higher quality than the Mellotron tapes, and I think you'll be able to hear that. On the bass, it's a 4-string flat wound bass that's meant to emulate the Fender Precisions of the 60s, and it does a really, really good job of that. Again, I'll be going through the core, mainly for the bass. I'm not going to use a lot of effects on the Mellotron. And I'm doing all this in GarageBand. I'm just using GarageBand as a recording device, and I'll maybe do a little mastering in that as well. But that's pretty much it. It's pretty straightforward. I think I'll start with the Mellotron again, get a soundscape going, some bass soloing, and then create a soundscape with the bass, and then do some Mellotron stuff. So let me just kind of get the microphone out of the way and we'll get the jam going. All right, a little flying by the seat of my pants on that one for sure. One of the things I want to point out, and you may have seen me try to kind of avoid it, and I've gone through this before. I'll link some videos, or I'll link a video in the description and maybe up there that where I do walk through the space echo and how you can set it up and use it as a long delay and then do this hardware looping. But the intensity knob, i.e. the repeats, is very, very finicky. Like the most you can go up to is about 130 on it, or you'll just go into self-oscillation. And I play around with that a lot, so even if I'm a teeny bit over and that self-oscillation, it was very slow building up with the Mellotron loop, but I was kind of going in the red and there's a little bit of distortion at spots. Typically with the bass, I'll use, I have a Boss Roland synth pedal. Doesn't need an extra pickup or anything like that, but it can get some more synthesized sounds, because even though I was using the GT1000Core and a bunch of different effects, I think as you could hear, the Boss, the bass, a lot of Boss effects and bass in this one. The bass gets kind of lost. That's kind of okay because I'm just building up a soundscape. And if I did this again, I'd probably do a few other things differently. A little rusty with the hardware looping. I did a whole series of videos on that and then kind of went back to just using the iPad as the main device, but I never really have done anything with the bass and the Mellotron, so might have to do some more of that just to get my chops exactly where I want them for for something like this. But I think, as I pointed out earlier, you could hear I was using Chamberlin sounds, particularly the Chamberlin Music Master, but they really sound like the Mellotron. I mean, the tapes are the same, different companies, there's a whole history about it. I go into that in a bunch of different videos, not going into that again. But the bottom line is a lot of times Chamberlin created the original tapes and the Mellotron company licensed those, and so they're often a generation removed. And you can still hear this loop going on in the background, even though I've got the intensity and the repeats set so that it's fading as slow as I possibly can. It's a very quirky device, but I really like using it for looping. It imparts this quality to it that just kind of ruins the frequency response from almost the first repeat. Yes, there's no reason to use this at all for long loops or long delays. I mean, there's tons of stuff on the iPad. I've used them before. I've done a lot with looping with Gauss, and there's certainly looping pedals out there. But a lot of what I do here is improv, and I just like to see where it goes. And this is one very good unit for doing sound-on-sound looping with having as very little control over it as possible, and you never really know where it's going to go. Anyways, that loop will keep going for hours and hours, but I'll fade all this out. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and good luck with your own music.